Okay, I want to welcome you to the broadcast again. And the first thing I want to do is actually, we're going to cover quite a few things. So I'm going to share my screen to give you a quick update on our schedule. So as always, I like to start with our schedule because things can change. And we're going to keep it short and sweet for this broadcast because there's basically one change. And that is that Lebensraum, The War for Europe, that's the new edition from Steven Newberg, was done by Simulations Canada in the 80s, basically. And we talked about it in our last episode, which was on August 2nd, last week. So that's been pushed back. So the original release date that I talked about last week was Lebensraum was going to be released on August 31st. You can see here that the new release date is now September 11th. So it's been pushed back less than 2 weeks. Night Fighter Ace is still on schedule to be released next on August 20th. And that's really the only schedule change as far as what we have since last week. However, of course, the bigger news is we're going to be ending today's broadcast with a new pre-order announcement. So definitely that will be big news for today's broadcast, that we do have a new pre-order announcement that we will be going through, and I look forward to telling you more about that at the close of our session. So we've covered the schedule change for Lebensraum. That's the only change for now. No other changes otherwise other than the pre-order announcement that I'll be making later. Next thing I want to mention is on Facebook, we had what we call now our Fan of the Week. So on the screen that I'm sharing, you see we have a new item on the left-hand side. We've got a Fan of the Week as well as we added a YouTube channel, which is where all these broadcasts are also available. But our Fan of the Week was Michael Wheel for last week. So I want to congratulate Michael for being our Fan of the Week for Facebook. We have a lot of good traffic on Facebook, so we want to be able to recognize those people. So also want to mention that the fan for this week, so I'm just clicking on the link, and it's going to go through and select for me who the new fan is. So let's see who we get here. So there's our Fan of the Week. So Thomas Hollering is our new Fan of the Week. It's our second week of doing this. So Thomas Hollering, I believe, is out of Germany, is our Fan of the Week. So basically, if you're our Fan of the Week, you'll get a coupon that's good for 30 days. It gets you 10% off any purchases you make online. Want to also thank Thomas. He was also talking on Facebook about Night Fighter Ace when I made those two book recommendations from Gregory Smith, the designer. Thomas was talking about one of the books was very good, and he also shared with us on Facebook that his father served in the war and flew a BF-109. So he was a flyer for the Germans during World War II. His dad. So that was really interesting that he shared that, and it's great that he shared that little bit of personal history with us. So I want to thank Thomas again for being our Fan of the Week. Now we also did a survey on Facebook. We had 37 responses. I'm going to stop sharing just for a moment. So let me stop sharing for now. So we had 37. People that responded to our Facebook survey was basically about this broadcast. I've done 10 of them now. So just getting my feet wet, getting acquainted with the system, and we wanted your feedback. So we got a good response rate. Most people were pretty kind to me. So thanks. On a scale of 1 out of 5, 5 being best, we got an average score of 4.1 was our average score as far as the quality of the information that we're giving you in terms of our broadcasts. What I want to cut to is really the two big pieces of feedback, and we're going to be doing both today. The first feedback is people, by and large, want shorter sessions. We've been averaging an hour for our video broadcasts, so our new average, we're going to target 30 minutes for our live broadcast. So we're cutting them in half. And also, we heard you loud and clear say that you want more designer interviews, and I completely agree with you. That's definitely the goal. We want to have designers that we can bring on board and talk with about their designs and what's happening with their designs. So that's going to be our goal as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So thanks for the feedback. There was some additional feedback about examples of play and replays, but if you think about that, there's really no good way to do an example of play or a replay in a full 30-minute broadcast, since we're covering various updates, including designer interviews, etc. So I think what we have to do there is we have that YouTube link now, for example, on Facebook, and we'll have it on our website and other places, is we'll just have to work on doing replay or tutorial, play tutorial videos. We'll have to shoot those and just post those on our YouTube channel and make sure we broadcast those out and promote those out to everybody. So I think that's the best way, is that way we can do dedicated sessions. What I'm going to try to do is see if there's a way I can do one on Night Fighter Ace, because it's coming out next, but we don't have the Vassal kit created yet, so it's going to be a sort of a timing question. But again, I want to thank you for your feedback and your participation. Again, you want to see the broadcast cut in half, about 30 minutes long. You want to see designers talking about what they're working on, and something with replays. We're going to try to find a solution for tutorials and replays to help you with the game. So that's going to be our goal, and thanks again for doing that. So next thing I want to do is I need to share my screen again so we can cover a few things today. So let's go back to screen sharing mode. And what I'd like to do is mention a few things for today. So the first thing I'd like to focus on is our first Kickstarter for a Euro game. So very important is what we're doing with Ulrich Blennemann out of Germany. He's heading our Euro game division. So an update for Colonialism. Now, if you're not familiar with Colonialism, if you're not, if you haven't been an avid Euro gamer, I myself haven't had time to do a lot of Euro gaming, but a little bit about Colonialism is that it's a second edition. It's been, you'll find it on Board Game Geek. It's been done before. It really sort of covers, and it doesn't hold back punches, it covers a fairly dark period in history of unbridled colonialism, basically going to uncharted areas and taking advantage of the resources there, taking out the native colonies and the culture there and converting it to, for economic prosperity. So if you look at the Board Game Geek write-up, it doesn't hold back. Like, it's almost like this political historical statement that, yeah, colonialism, you're going in and you're clearing out the culture there, unbridled expansion, and that's what the game's really about. But it's also, obviously, it's a very good game. It's very topical historically as well. I know the expanded second edition, because we see the word expanded on here. It's going to have 6 additional game cards that are going to be included. But again, the theme of the game, I reviewed some of the comments. It's a fairly dark but very realistic theme of our world history, and a very good positive reviews on Board Game Geek, where a lot of the Eurogaming comments you'll find about this game. So as far as a date when we launch the Kickstarter for Colonialism, we're going to be launching the Kickstarter on August 22nd. So coming August 22nd on Kickstarter from Compass Games will be Colonialism Expanded Second Edition. So I hope you might have an interest in Euro games. This will probably be a great topic to get started with, and we're really excited about it. So I just wanted to share a little bit about Colonialism, and what I'll probably do is I'll try to do an interview with Ulrich Blennemann, who lives in Germany. I'll record that off hours with him, so it's a better time for his local time zone, and then I'll publish the recorded interview with Ulrich. He can do a much better job than I can. It's his project, and he'll give you more of the history about this Euro game, more facets about gameplay, etc. He'll be able to cover more of that. So I just want to give you the heads up for now that Colonialism will be kickstarting on August 22nd. Now, I want to switch gears because some of you had some questions for me in the last few sessions about War for the Union. So War for the Union is actually scheduled for release in October, or I'm sorry, in August. In August, so it's coming up. It's coming up soon. So let me just pull up the schedule for you again, just to show that schedule. Let me see here. So here we go. Let me go back to the schedule. I want to make sure I've got the date right for this. So here we go. Okay, yeah, War for the Union. I'm going to split the difference. It's going to be coming in September. It's coming next month. So a lot of questions around War for the Union. The map is just about ready to show. I can't quite show the map yet, but I do have the counter sheets that I'd like to be able to share with you now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So first, a little bit about War for the Union. What you're seeing here is just one page from the rule booklet, and I'll zoom in here a little bit so you can see some of the graphics, the map graphics that are underway and the playing pieces. So this is a second edition of Rob Bama's War for the Union. It was originally published by Clash of Arms. So you can get an idea of the graphics here for the map and some of the counters. Again, this is coming from page 10 of the rules that will be available soon, as well as the map. But I want to walk you through, there's 4 counter sheets. So I'll walk you through the counter sheets quickly. So here's counter sheet number 1. We've got, of course, the gray for the rebel forces. So I'll give you a nice zoom in on that so you can see the nice icon treatment. Also have the ranking of the various leaders and the artillery batteries. On the right side of the counters, we got the forts, the naval units, and supply markers, etc. Got the cavalry. So I think I'm just taking my time here to give you a chance to really see a close-up of some of the counters for War for the Union 2nd edition. We'll move on now to the Union side. Same idea, same type of counter treatment. Notice the Union pieces are situated facing the other direction a little bit compared to the rebel forces. So we can see here they're looking off to the west. So we've got the infantry, a lot of infantry here with some cavalry at the bottom. We'll go to counter sheet number 3. So there's 4 counter sheets. So again, more leaders here. As you can see with the naval units, now we're getting into markers like sea movement, rail movement, under construction, depots, siege, tracking sieges, entrenchments and levels of entrenchments, and fort levels as well, and the die roll modifiers for that. And then the final sheet's going to be more markers again for us to look at here. So again, a lot of markers around entrenchments, supply status, the status for railhead markers. Yeah, we got fatigue. There's fatigue in the game, fatigue levels based on troop movements, etc. So we've got all that captured as well. So this is the first time we've actually showed the counters for War for the Union, the 4 counter sheets. What I'll be doing next is I will be posting the counters. At least this is the front side of the counter sheets. I'm not bothering with the back side of the counter sheets today, but they're printed front and back. But I promise I'll get some of these counter sheets added to our website tomorrow. And then as soon as the map becomes available, I will then post the map for you as well. In the meantime, you sort of have a sneak peek of the game map with what I showed you here. So there's a little bit there about the components for War for the Union. Again, that's going to be shipping in September. So it's going to be shipping next month. So I expect to get the other graphics in fairly soon, and we'll be able to post those to the website. And let me just check if we got some questions real quickly. So thank you. Thanks, Tim, for the comments that you like how the components and the map look. So yeah, we're excited to get this new edition out. Gives Rob Bama the chance as the designer to get a second shot at his design, which I think is exciting for him, that he can take another swing at the bat and work on that design. So the next thing I want to do here is I want to introduce you to a special guest. So just give me a moment while I introduce somebody here. And we'll just wait for him to join us here in one moment. And I think we now have joining us Don Johnson. He said I can call you Don. So Don, I want to welcome you to our live broadcast number 11 at Compass Games. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well.
Well, thanks for joining us today. The reason I have Don joining us today is we're going to be talking about his new design. It's in the development stage. He's going to tell us a little bit about it tonight. And that game is The Great Rebellion. And what I want to do first, I don't know how many might be familiar with Don Johnson already. He's quite popular and well known, especially around the Consum World forum circles. He's been involved in a lot of past designs, at least as a developer. So people that know his games and where he's been involved know him quite well. They also know how hard he works on doing a masterful job as a game developer. Game developers can be either a very easy job or a very difficult job, depending on how much the game developer invests in the project. And Don's one of these guys that invests heavy doses of expertise and time, blood, sweat, and tears in the projects he works. But he's going to talk about some projects he's done as, I think, mainly as a developer. Is that correct, Don? Can you give us a little background for the viewers? What you've worked on in the past?
I was a developer for Compass Games' Proud Monster Deluxe, and I made enough changes that Ty said I was really a co-designer.
Well, yes, I know from the effort you put into your work. I know that's probably the least they can do is to do that. And then we're going to be talking about the Great Rebellion. So I think there's an interesting history here to how this game happened, because I know you've done some work on some other Civil War games in the past. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience with what you've done with other Civil War games?
I was one of the developers for Decision Games War Between the States. And in my life circumstances, I wasn't able to finish the development. I had to drop out and get another developer. So I was about half of a developer for that. But I kept coming back to it, and I would read history books, and I would say, oh, I could change these rules and make the game better, make it more, follow up history more, right? And I would issue a yearly update, and people would play with my updates and really enjoy the game a lot more. So Compass said, well, what if you weren't constrained by the map and the counters, right? And I said, wow, that would be amazing. And they said, okay.
Well, speaking of that, I want to show everybody the game map, because again, the Great Rebellion is it is a monster game. It's multiple maps. So let me just bring it up. I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to take a quick peek here at the game map. So here I'm actually showing now how many map sheets is this?
That's 4 map sheets.
So okay, so this is right up my alley. I love it. It's 4. It's a nice big game. All of the American Civil War, 4 full map sheets. This is, I know, a version that's in progress by Udo Greb in Germany. He's doing the artwork on the maps. I saw it in person at Consum World Expo this year. Looks fantastic. I'm going to zoom in. If you can tell us a little bit more about the map, and while you do that, I'm going to zoom in on the map.
It's got historical rail gauges.
Can you say that again about the historical rail gauges again, so they hear that?
Yeah. So if you can look, you can see the colors change right there. You can see at Louisville, there's a color, and then going down south.
Yeah.
There are 3 different colors or 3 different types of rail gauges in the game. So it matters what rail gauge you're on, because when you're on a different rail gauge, of course, you have to take time to switch to a different gauge. And in fact, all these cities, what would happen is different rail lines would come into the city, and there wouldn't be what's called a Union Station. They would just come into the city, and then you'd have to walk or use a Teamster to go from one city to part of the city to the other and connect to the next rail line.
The map looks fantastic.
So you can see 3 different colored rail lines at Richmond.
Can you tell us is there anything you want to tell us now as far as where you are with the development, as far as with the game system, what the key focus as a designer? Do you have certain key focus as a designer?
There'll be cards that you can select. They're not randomly chosen. You select them, and they represent commitment to major decisions, like what is the strategic thrust of this front, of the Eastern Front, for example. Are you on an offensive, or you're on a defensive, or what? And you commit to that.
Anything about the leaders?
Well,
or how are you going to model command in the game?
And one of the design puzzles is if you think about it, Lincoln didn't know Grant was Grant. he didn't know how to differentiate between Grant and Pope in history, right?
Yeah.
Pope was given an army of Virginia, possibly replacing McClellan, but then lost at Second Manassas, which you would never do in the game. Well, in this game, you'll do it because you don't know better.
I see. That's interesting. So did you mention, I think you mentioned to me at Consom World Expo, something about even the cavalry with Jeb Stuart, or there's some things that...
Jeb Stuart did three... It's well known that he rode around the Army of the Potomac. It's less well known that he did that 3 times. And in games of this scope, it's not very common that you can do that in the game. Well, in this game, you'll be able to do it. In fact, because Stuart is seeking glory, he'll almost certainly do it, even if you don't want him to, because he was a glory seeker. So there are different attributes to the leaders that make them work in historical ways.
Well, let me ask you one final question. So it's been great. It's been a pleasure to have you on. And like I said, a lot of people have been asking about this game, The Great Rebellion. I mean, a lot of people, you know, going back, even from myself back in the days with SPI and War Between the States, I have a real affinity and fondness for these big these big games on the Civil War. How's the design been for you? Have you enjoyed the design process this time around, being your own design from the ground floor? And
yeah, instead of being constrained by the counter mix and the map, I get to say, what would I do on the map in the first place? And then what would I choose to have for the counter mix? And Compass is all behind everything. We can come up with an idea that it's going to be a couple thousand counters, but I know from the past, if it adds a few more, they say, do the right thing. And so it's going to be what I want it to be, you know.
Is there anything scary about that for you, like doing the design?
It's definitely a little scary, yes. I like giving the players in my games lots of choices, including the ability to make wrong decisions. Well, and then I call that giving you enough rope to hang yourself. Well, I've got enough rope to hang myself.
Well, that's great. Well, listen, I'm excited about this game, and I know we're still early on, I think, in development. I know at Expo you had some great working sessions going on.
Yes.
And my understanding is there's going to be a big play test we've got scheduled for Compass Games Expo, November 9th to the 12th. Yes. So you're inviting people to join you to, and as they can see, the map by Knut Grunitz, it's basically done here. It's a very high quality map. We've got the counter, so they'll have a nice play experience playing the game. And that's again in November 9th through the 12th, and we'll be seeing you in person there in Connecticut. So we're excited to have you there.
And one thing is, I hate kitchen sink designs.
I was going to ask about that. Where do you know when to stop or how do I ask? How do you know where those focus areas need to be for this design? Because you can have 10 different focus areas, and you can go 10 different directions in complexity.
That's right. Well,
you could have a completely complex naval system if you wanted to do completely complex supply system or command system.
Right. And I believe in Dunnigan. When you get a big game, it's got to have simple mechanics, or it's unplayable. I believe in Dunnigan's philosophy. So you've got to streamline things. So what I'm trying to do is take out all the chores, and keep all the fun, but give you lots of decisions that you can make mistakes.
Right. Somebody was commenting here. Milton Duncan was saying, I guess there's no hardtack like pasta rules like in Campaign for North Africa. There's
nothing like that.
No Italian pasta rules. It's not a complexity of you know what?
No.
I guess some people have told me, because I haven't played Campaign for North Africa, they've told me Campaign for North Africa is not that it's complex. It just takes forever to play because all the bookkeeping's ridiculous. And
yes, there's a tremendous amount. I hate bookkeeping.
Yeah.
So there needs to be some, but I try to keep it to a minimum.
So what about the scenarios? Do you know yet what we might have for scenarios in this game as we get
Different
closer?
years.
Years by the
I
years?
expect to be able to start.
Great, great. So a lot of options, probably that's good for like training scenarios, so they don't have to get right into the campaign right away. They can start with one of the yearly scenarios, which I'm sure people are really going to appreciate having that. So unless you got some, I'm going to let you make any closing remarks, Don, about where you are with the design today and what's going to be happening in the next month or two with the Great Rebellion project.
There's a CSW forum thread for anybody that's interested for discussions.
Yeah.
And 12.5 miles to the hex, weekly turns. Mm-hmm. One strength point is 1,000 people. So.
Great. Well, one strength point is 1,000 people for the troops, for the infantry.
Yeah.
What is it for cavalry, and how do you do cavalry and artillery scale?
As of right now, artillery is factored in to the infantry and cavalry to keep it simple.
Ah, okay.
Because they were always with it for the most part.
Great. Well, listen, I want to thank you for whetting our appetite with the Great Rebellion. I want to thank you for answering some of my questions. I hope this also was good for those that are watching right now live or for the recorded session. They'll get more background. They'll be a little more familiar with the game now. We don't have a lot of information out about it yet. For example, it's not on pre-order yet or anything like that. So this is really our first look at the Great Rebellion other than being on the Consum World Forum. But I want to thank you, Don, for joining us today and
thank you.
Letting us know about it. We'll be in touch, and we'll do another, I'm sure we'll do another update with you to check in with you. And we'll also perhaps have some more questions, audience questions for you as well, that we can prep you with. So we can go a little more in depth on the Great Rebellion as the development process is further along. We'll be in a better position to get into more details about your design. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. All righty, let me... Well, I hope you enjoyed that. It was a pleasure to talk with Don. He goes by Donald Johnson as well because of the actor, Miami Vice. Some people wanted the Miami Vice intro music for Don, and I don't think he would be very happy with that. So it's great to have Don Johnson on, and again, really excited about his design. Monster level game, war between the states style game, American Civil War, should be a great hit. So without further ado, I want to get to our pre-order announcement. So I just have to go to the Compass site, and I need to do a quick refresh of the Compass website, because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be basically turning on and activating our new pre-order title that we're going to be announcing right now. So just bear with me for a moment while I go ahead and enable that, and you can probably follow along on the Compass website while I get this up and running. So I believe we have it now. So let me see if I can bring it up. So let's see what we have here. So I'm going to do a quick refresh here to pre-orders. And here we go. We're going to get right to it. So I'm going to make sure I'm sharing my screen first of all, so we can actually see what's going on. So bear with me while I get ready to make sure I've got screen share turned on, which I'm doing right now. Great. So for those that are familiar with South China Sea, we have our new pre-order from the same game designer, John Gorkowski, the Indian Ocean region. So I'd have to say, without a doubt, that South China Sea has been a big hit for Compass Games. We had a lot of traffic online about the game, a lot of different gaming groups. You know when a game's taking off because you see through Facebook, Board Game Geek, you just see what's happening online. A lot of people start talking about playing the game, how much fun they had, and it just really had, it grew from there, had very strong momentum as a game. And South China Sea has done fantastic for us. I apologize for those on Facebook. Looks like the screen went to black and white. That's a typical Facebook Live problem, but don't worry, it will be fine when you have the HD edited version that I'm going to post. You'll be seeing everything in color, no problem at all. So apologies if the quality is not good on Facebook Live right now. You can switch over to the Zoom broadcast if you want. There's a link in my Facebook post where you can register and you can join us here on Zoom, where everything's always in full color in live mode. So again, sorry, Facebook Live is tripping up again. Likes to do that sometimes. But again, really attractive. Now, this is a draft of the box art. So this is not final box art, but it looks pretty darn good to me. I like the look of it very much already. But again, it's modern naval conflict in the Indian Ocean, obviously involving China, but of course it now involves India as well. We have a nice detailed description from John Gorkowski about the game. Christopher Moeller is the artist for the game, both for South China Sea as well as for this new one. So we're excited to have the same team coming together. For now, we've got some draft copies. These are not final copies at all. So again, South China Sea came with oversized counters. We have the exact same thing for also Indian Ocean region, this game as well. But these are just draft counters. These are going to be, they're not final yet. So if you see something you don't like or you wonder about, you know, we still have the game being worked on by Chris Moeller. All the artwork's being worked on by Chris right now. But I would just want to give you an idea. Here's the front of counter sheet number 1. You can get a good idea. We've got the India, like I said, we've got the India forces here, obviously. We've got the Iranian forces, Oman, Myanmar on sheet number 1. And then we'll go to sheet number 2 is also available on the website right now. So we got, of course, China. The protagonist here is China, so we've got them. Then we've got USA. We've got a mixed bag of Sri Lanka, UAE, Somalia, Yemen, and Pakistan. So a lot of regional flavor. I believe the thesis here is we're looking at the year 2025. So this is less than 10 years out in terms of a potential conflict for the war. So very interesting design. Right now, we're projected for the release of this game for Indian Ocean region is Q2, second quarter of 2019. I believe John Gorkowski might be on active duty, going out on active duty himself as a designer right now, so he's a very busy man. And I think that's why the schedule sort of reflects that, but we're very excited. You can pre-order this game today, right now, in fact. You can do a pre-order now and pay later, as we typically do, for Indian Ocean region. And again, this was a very South China Sea, really did extremely well for us. So we're really excited to announce this new design by John Gorkowski. And I think a lot of people are going to be excited about it because the history and looking at the politics today and things that are developing, you know, it's not a stretch of the imagination at all. If things go sideways on us, what will armed conflict look like if China gets aggressive in that area of the region, Indian region? So, again, very much looking forward to this new modern naval conflict game in the Indian Ocean. And I hope, again, that's something you're going to be looking to pre-order today. What I'd like to do in closing is give you a quick snap update on another project that is being worked on. So I'd like to give you a quick update on the Third World War series. This is the Monster GDW reprint, Frank Chadwick design. And I know we have a few people online with us today, like Eric. Eric's been involved in this project from day one. Eric Fragos, you've done a terrific job, Eric. And Joe Youst, I had a meeting with Joe Youst today. Joe, I believe, is online as well, and he's done a great job on the maps. It's a big job, and I want to tell you a little bit about where we are with the game maps right here. I know I've run a little bit over the 30-minute mark, so we're going to wrap it up quickly here. This game's going to now come with 6 full-size maps. So as you can see here, we have map 1, which is Central Front, which is right here where my mouse is on the left. Map 2 is the Arctic Front, and you can see how it's gonna mate. It's gonna come in at an angle because we can combine the game. So it's gonna come in at an angle over map 1 and map 4, and I'm gonna talk about map 4 in a second. It's very interesting what's happening with map 4. It's a new addition to the game. You can see map 2, again, Arctic Front. Map 3 is the Southern Front. That's at the bottom. And then for Persian Gulf, we have maps 5 and 6. So again, these are all the maps we have, but map 4, let's talk about map 4 for a second. So the way GDW released their games, all individual releases, ours is all 4 games in one box. They had smaller maps. And this map 4 region, the way we want to join the maps, this map 4 region that's white is an area that we frankly, it wasn't included in the GDW version. This is uncharted territory. So Joe Youst got a historical map of the area. So this is just sort of the beginning look. Now you can see where that line is. This whole area right here of Russia, Poland, even St. Petersburg. So we've got Poland, Warsaw, St. Petersburg is now going to be on the map. Smolensk is going to be on the map. We're adding this whole new area that I'm showing you here. And then the information that Joe got from the maps are historical maps. These are research maps, military research maps from the 1985-1993 period. So we're using the historical maps from that time period, and you can see here, I can try zooming in, but this is not how the map's going to look, by the way. This is just the overlay of the geographical topology data with the locations. It's even got the river lines on it. It's hard to see, but it's got its own river lines. It's all geographic markings, etc. But we're not going to be, we're going to be extracting things off of this view through the filters, and we're going to have we'll do an interview with Joe Youst in the future, probably in about a month, to really go in depth about the map project. But I can even zoom in here to show you one area is we're going to be adding St. Petersburg. So even St. Petersburg is going to be making an introduction to the Third World War series because we're adding this whole section to the map. So we've got some key areas we're adding to the map just by that area 4 that's blank here. That white area is now going to be getting filled up. So what the plan is from a publishing perspective is we're looking to get this game out early next year. So what we do with Designer Signature Edition first is we don't like to just make changes just for change's sake. We're going to honor the original Frank Chadwick design, but we went crazy with enhancements, as Eric can, maybe I'll even have Eric do an interview with Eric, who's one of our project team members. We went crazy with all the enhancements. So it's all about making the game much more deluxe and feel, also make it a smarter game of how you play the game. So hundreds of new markers that are really needed, if you think they're really needed for the game to make it friendlier. A lot of new player aid cards are going to be added, but we're not changing the order of battle yet or adding a bunch of new rules like a naval module overlay to the game or other special rules. And then you need like I said, you need about a year of play testing with a new order of battle. So we're going to release this as the base game first, all 4 games, as a hat tip, paying tribute to Frank Chadwick's original design with all these enhancements. But then we'll have this new map ready, and then we're going to spend a year with playtesting, order battle research, additional rule modules that have already been developed. All that's going to come out a year later. So we'll have a brand new look, a brand new take on this game within a year. And then we've got some additional titles we're looking at based on this system, such as Manchurian Front. So again, a lot of exciting work taking place right now. We're about a week away from Joe Youst having the actual maps completed with all the final artwork. But as you can see here, a lot of maps really put nice together, and really a stellar job by the project team. It's a very big project. A lot of hours being put into it. So I just want to close on that note. I'm going to see if there's any quick questions that anybody has. I know Don's answered a lot of questions already on the Zoom platform. So I'm just looking through Facebook Live right now. Yes, sorry about the black and white. Facebook does this. It's the second time in a row, actually, Facebook Live has gone to black and white. It's not going to stay that way because when I post the edited, recorded version, you'll have full color and it'll be HD quality. So please check in. Within 12 hours, I'll have the full HD quality available. So again, I hope this format worked well for you. We cut about 20 to 25 minutes off this format. We actually covered more. I think we covered more territory in that brief time. So I'm just seeing, I think some final questions came up. So how many scenarios for the game? That was probably from Walter McGovern. I'm assuming that's for the War Between the States game. Most likely, yes, it was, I believe. So that's going to be 1 per year. So that's what we're going to have for the Great Rebellion. We'll have individual scenarios for the Great Rebellion on a yearly basis, as Don mentioned. And I'm looking right now. I don't see any other questions. So one question from Tim Toe. Most of your games are in the higher end of pricing. Are there plans for smaller games? Actually, I've covered pricing a few times. Tim, I have a feeling, I don't know if you saw, I covered pricing in the past. It has to do with how we do our commitment to projects. We don't print necessarily overseas, which has, and then the number of units is less. So there's a whole economics behind that where we get games out really fast. But the per unit cost is higher, and we're also assuming more risk because we're not waiting for a pre-order count for any games. As soon as the game gets committed to, we publish the game as soon as the game's ready and the artwork's done. So that's a little bit, I went into more background about pricing in the past. I won't go deeper than that. But yes, smaller games indeed. And even in terms of pricing, there's some good news on that. And that is for the one-map games, pretty much all the one-map games you see from us in the future, with the exception of Pacific Tide, they're going to be basically mounted maps. They're going to be all mounted maps as one-mappers. France 1944 is a good example of that. Hearts and Minds is another one-map game, and there's others. So one-map games are going to have mounted maps, but the price point is not going to change at all. There's not going to be any increase in the price for the smaller games of what we have historically today, but you'll get mounted components, better quality components, at least for the map board. So we're excited to be able to do that as well. So that's just a little bit about smaller games. So yes, there's a lot of smaller games. There's so much on our, I have to do a separate webinar on our long range plans. There's going to be a Paper Wars article with a update from each division. And I also talk about a few of the smaller games. For example, from Masahiro Yamazaki, he's doing a new design coming out, Motherland 2. Motherland is a bigger Eastern Front game, World War II he's done. He's doing a one-map version of that. I've shown that on Facebook, I believe, and on Consum World Forum. And there are other single-map games coming out as well. So we're going to have a broad mix of games from small to big, absolutely. And I believe at that point, I think I've covered all the questions for today. So I want to leave you with... sadly, I have to tell you that I'm going to be offline. It's going to probably be about 3 weeks before we do our next session, which means Night Fighter Ace will already be not only shipping, but you'll probably have it in your hands. I'm going to be out. I have to do some minor surgery next week, and then I'm traveling to San Diego to pay respects to my father, who's put the final rest in San Diego at the National National Cemetery out in that area. Did the ceremony a few months ago. So I'm going to be off, unfortunately, for at least the next 2 weeks when I would normally be doing these broadcasts. So we're going to be probably out at least 3 weeks from today before we meet again. So I hope, my apologies again that I won't be able to talk to you for a few weeks, but I expect a lot of updates. And we're going to come back red hot with a lot of news and a lot of updates in 3 to 4 weeks. And also from the poll survey we did, I did ask a question about would you like a weekly call-in, where instead of doing a webinar format where you don't really get a chance to talk, I'll be doing a weekly format at a set time every week. Once, one weekday, maybe Friday night or Thursday night for maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Anybody can call in and ask questions to me directly. So about 70% of the people polled said they'd like me to try doing a weekly call-in. So we'll just advertise. It's going to be a recurring meeting. It's going to be on the Zoom platform. You can just log in and meet me, once a week at that time, and I'll be there to answer any questions you have. So we'll start that up in September as well. So basically, we're going to be on break for a few weeks before we do our next live broadcast, number 12. But when we come back in a few weeks, we'll not only have our live broadcasts again, but I'll schedule our weekly touch points where you can dial in and chat with me for a few minutes with any questions you have. So I want to thank you for joining us today. I want to thanks for the feedback on the webcast that we've done so far. I hope they've been informative for you. I hope you enjoyed the interview format for today. We're in early stages of development for The Great Rebellion from Don Johnson. So we got a sneak peek at some of the early work being put into that project, and we'll have a lot more interviews in our future. So thanks again, everybody, for joining. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll be back in about 3 to 4 weeks. Take care, everybody.